It was an early start for some on Saturday as they prepared for racing Section 1 of the Toyota 1000 Desert Race. With 74 vehicles leaving the start line in the space of 12 minutes, the dust would make it sheer hill for crews to find their way, let alone race, in the opening stages of the event. Local fans turned up in their thousands at the start and elsewhere on the route. Despite the weather having turned cold and the skies being overcast, there was no forecast of rain, which would have helped settle the dust. What were the chances of an older beam axle Raceco beating the more fancied A-arm Jimcos and Bats?
Look, there's one about 2 seconds behind us, but we're there. I think more so the fact that in an old car, this car's nearly 20 years old, we're the 6th special overall. Kind of says something about good old cars can still do well, and just keep going today. Looking forward to it.
We don't mind starting third. We'd like to finish first though. No, it's advantageous in the morning. The bush is very thick. So look, we went as quickly as we could yesterday, but with a lot of reserve. So hopefully halfway through the morning we should get to the front. But it's a 2-day race. It's 1,000 kilometers, 500 each day, so it's a long way. We actually got to look after the car, not to have any problems with punches or wrong slotting, because we found yesterday it was a little bit difficult to navigate, but otherwise it was great. So we hope to set a good pace, which we will. We've got a good start position. Only got 2 cars in front, so we look forward to a good race, man.
Ons lê nou op die oomblik spring ons tweede in die klas weg, so ek gaan kyk of ons die posisie kan tweede hou en dan môre oorvat, kyk of ons kan klaarmaak. So ons moet môre, vandag moet ons maar ewe hard ry, want die ouens se bakkies is almal ewe vinnig deesdae, so ons sal moet hard ry om voor te bly en ons hoop alles loop goed. Ons voorbereiding is reg vir die bakkie. So hoop maar hou maar duime vas.
We're just going to have to try and sort of keep a fair distance behind the Nissans and the Fords, because they're pretty quick, and we'll see what happens at the end of the day.
It's a good place to start second, especially if you have to just get the cattle out of the way and also look for the road. There's some places today that you have just to follow the markers, and that's not always the easiest to do if you're in the front.
Just what made the boss quick. I looked at him.
The moment of truth had arrived for Glyn Hall, who showed on Friday that he had lost none of his talent gained over many years of rallying. But how would he perform in the tough world of off-road racing, where endurance is the key? The Minister of Environment, Wildlife and Tourism, Mrs. Pelanomi Vernon, flagged off the leading group. Hall and Jordan were in a determined mood, and with no dust they were able to steadily open up the gap on the rest of the field. Krobler and Leek weren't too concerned about starting second and had decided to play a waiting game up until the designated service point at Manchwabisi and then attack on the way back to Gaborone. And Scholthammer had opted for a similar strategy and were confident that the Team Ford Racing Ranger had the measure of the proudly South African Nissans, where Smith and Minute had only one objective in mind: beat the trucks. 2000 Toyota 1000 winners Mark Corbett and John Moore were out to win a second time and intended staying out of the way of tree stumps, which ended their run in 2003, while Mekhekeneni and Carolyn had also decided to play a waiting game on day one. The rest of the field followed in quick succession. The battle between Toyota, Nissan and Ford for Class D and E honours would be watched with great interest, as would Kirstein and Eustace's quest for a podium finish in the special vehicle category. Hugo and Jaap de Bruin were chasing their third successive Class E win of the season and hoped to grab the production vehicle championship lead if Krobler and Leek put a wheel wrong, while Team Ford racers Schroeder and Peckham were intent on ending Cronje and Birkin and Cox and Pitchford's winning run in Class D. Schilling and Walk had matters well under control in Class S and starting to gain ground on some of their Class A and S rivals, while reigning Class D champions Hein Krobler and Gerard Prinsloo were hoping to get their championship campaign underway after a spate of non-finishers. Nardis Alberts and Colin Hunter were well placed in the Class S Rapsa Raceco, in which Greg Dowse and VZ Van Sale won the 2002 Toyota 1000, but were being hauled in by Nick Harper and Andrew Chalupsky in the Audi V8 powered Class A BAT racing entry. Colin Matthews was comfortably in the Class B lead when he got the WPP bogged down in thick sand, which allowed Lichtenberg 200 winners Hein Mullman and Cecil Fincham to nip by in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux KZTE. Clint Gibson and Mike Brown were the next to arrive on the scene and would overtake Matthews soon after exiting the dry riverbed. Class S Championship leader Nick Gosler and Warren Bowie attempted to tow Gary Bertholdt and Siegfried Rosso in the advanced soft Nissan hardbody out of deep ruts, but to no avail. The Nissan was well and truly stuck, and the rest of the field took advantage of their misfortune to gain another place on the road. Rookies Chris Fick and Rob Knight found the going a little tough in the Kopenhagen Hotel Super Team Land Rover, previously raced by Marius and Tracy van Vuren, while George Barkhuizen made it all look easy in the locally built motorcycle engine Ultimo. Thomas Rundle and Rainer Seitz had a tense moment in the Baden Toyota Hilux. Zakaria Bamji and Ahmed Hussein made it look easy, as did Variawa and Dudhir, who made up 12 places. Rolf and Henriette van Heerden got their Toyota Hilux well and truly beached.
Still up, just take it up a bit.
It took ages to dig the Toyota out. One wonders how Hendrik and Louis Ferry managed to bury the Zarco light in this rut.
Ek gaan net 'n half meter van die pad af, slaan ek die voorwiel stuk in. Ruil ons die wiel en nou val ek in 'n gat. Ai, jy weet. Lyk my ek moet begin golf speel.
The crowds have been waiting at Livingston Bridge since sunrise for their annual horsepower show, and they weren't to be disappointed as Frobler and Leek powered into view. The Nissan pair took over the lead 12 kilometers into the race when Hall and Jordan retired with steering problems and were steadily increasing the gap on the rest of the field. Team Ford Racing pair Woolridge and Scholthammer were trailing the Nissan by 90 seconds and had opened up a gap of over 2 minutes on Voss and Tersteger in the ailing proudly South African Nissan hardbody, which had picked up a misfire at the start and was not quite on the pace of the two front-running crews. Mark Corbett and Jean Moore were fourth on the road and the special vehicle category leaders in the Century Property Developments bat, with Atang Magegeneni and Bux Carolan trailing them by just over 3 minutes in the total Jimco. The Botswana Nationals certainly enjoyed a huge following. Terence Marsh and Mike Whitehouse were a further 2 minutes behind in the Mitsubishi V6 Supercharged Nashua Mobile Jimco, with Mark Cronje and Chris Birkin the fourth production vehicle on the road and the Class D leaders in the Castrol Toyota Hilux. The speed differential between the Class T and D vehicles is such that they were over 13 minutes behind the leaders after 1 hour of racing. Class E leaders Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst got a thorough soaking in the neatly turned-out Tyco Trucks Toyota Hilux. Visser's late father Chris was one of the pioneers of off-road racing in the 1970s and the driving force behind the Castrol Barberspan 500, in which enduro motorcyclists Alfie Cox and Ralph Pitchford excelled. The Nissan pair was second in Class D and 3 minutes behind Cronje and Birkin. veterans Henry Costain and Renier Euster were really enjoying the Nissan V6 powered Atlas Copco bat that they had previously campaigned in Class B. Class E Championship leaders Hugo and father Jaap de Bruin almost got it all wrong in the Castrol Toyota Hilux that Cronje and Birkin used to win the 2003 Class E Championship. Former Class E champions Manfred Schroeder and Jack Peckham were hoping for a good result in the Team Ford Racing Ranger that would elevate them from second to first in the coveted Class D Championship. Off-road veterans Schilling and Walk adopted a cautious approach so as not to spoil their chances of a Class S win in the Plastotech Raceco, which has seen almost 20 years of racing action. Reigning Class D champions Hein Frobler and Gerard Prinsloo have yet to score a point in this year's ABSA Off-Road Championship, which has caused for huge frustration in the GBS racing camp, where Smith and Minute picked up a puncture and were on a charge to make up for lost time, but also had to fend off Alberts and Hunter. Hein Moorman and Cecil Fincham, himself a veteran Toyota 1000 campaigner, have the pace but have yet to score a point in the championship. Nick Harper has taken over the reins at Bat Racing following Brandon Harkis's decision to relocate to San Diego to further his international off-road racing career. 8th place, Clint Gibson and Mike Brown have the vehicle and the talent, but victory has eluded them thus far. A battle royal was raging in Class B, with Colin Matthews having to fend off former Class B champions Marcus Taylor and Mark de Chalane in the JRE, who were the actual leaders by over a minute on corrected time. Warren Clarkson and Kim Dixon in the Radflow Zarco Light were the third Class B vehicle on the road and disappointed the huge crowd by taking the safe route, as did Class F leaders Andre Buerta and Beans Heidenreich, who were having a steady run in the Kopanong Hotel Super Team Chevy. Osman Sadik and Sukat Fazaldin in the Broadhurst Motors Nissan Hardbody delivered a star performance as far as the crowd was concerned. Thomas Rundle and Rainer Seitz slipped by in the Barden Tyres Services Toyota Hilux. The luckless pair were determined not to lose another position, which Chris Fick and Rob Knight could easily have gained had they taken the safe route right at the outset.